What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2021 predictions. The Iowa Hawkeyes are up next, and I'll be honest here, I'm having a hard time getting a handle on what we're going to see from Iowa this year, how good they're going to be. Most teams, I feel pretty confident that I'm gonna get within a game or maybe two when I do their predictions. But with Iowa, it's a little bit tougher because it's a team, on the one hand, when you look at who's coming back, there's not a ton of production coming back, especially on the offensive and defensive lines, which is sometimes worrisome, especially for a team like Iowa. But at the same time, you look at a program like Iowa, they just continue to develop these players. So yeah, you lose some guys, but then you've got some other guys that you've been developing, and they're going to step up. And it's not exactly reload in recruiting, but it's kind of reload in and how you develop these players, and that's what a program like Iowa does so well. I question the passing game with Spencer Petras. How good is he going to be this year? He was okay last year, but nothing special. Tyler Goodson's back at running back, so they're going to be able to run the football. I feel pretty confident in that. But when you got to go out and you got to air it out against the team, are they going to be able to do that? Are they going to be able to stop teams with a younger defensive line? Just a lot of question marks. And I think people that are just assuming that Iowa's going to be a top 20 team and a team that can compete for the Big Ten West, I think that's possible, definitely possible. But at the same time, I could see this team not even being a top 25 team this year. Now, they're not going to be bad. Don't get me wrong. They're at least a 7-5 type team. I'd say probably almost worst case scenario, and that's really where the FBI has them, 7.5 and 4.7. So 7-5, 8-4, somewhere in that range. Athlon's preseason magazine has them at 8-4. The over under is a little bit higher, it's at 8.5. So you got to either go over that or under that. So 9-3 or 8-4. I'm surprised that it's really not right there around 8, kind of going with Athlon, especially when you see the FBI only giving them 7.5 wins. But let's get into my predictions now. And it starts here with Indiana on the very first game of the season here on September 4th. They're going to be a great game. There are a couple, there's some big games in the Big Ten in week 1 this year. I don't know why they did this, but you've got Indiana and Iowa. You've got Ohio State and Minnesota. You've got Penn State and Wisconsin. Going to be a really big opening week in the conference, in the Big Ten. This is a tough game for Iowa. I think when I look at these two teams, I think Indiana's probably the better team, and I really like how they're going to be, in my opinion, they're going to be more explosive on offense than Iowa, and I think that causes a problem for Iowa. Can they score enough points to keep up? But I do like the secondary for Iowa, and I think that is going to match up well with these receivers for Indiana. It's going to be a close game, a very hard-fought game. I do give a little nudge to Iowa here because of home field advantage. I'm going to go with the Cyclones. Like I said, I think Indiana's a little bit better team, but playing at home, it's going to be tough to beat Iowa. It's a tough place to play. It's going to be rocking week 1 with all the fans coming back. I've got to just give a slight edge to Iowa, but it's a tough one. It is a tough one. If it was at Indiana, I'd definitely pick Indiana. And if it was on a neutral side, I'd probably go with Indiana there as well. But it's tough to play there at Iowa, and I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes to get the win. After that, they play Iowa State on the road. We all know about Iowa State. This is a team that is getting a ton of hype coming into this season. Maybe a playoff contender, a team that can maybe take Oklahoma down in the Big 12, and for good reason. They're loaded. They've got a lot coming back this year. They've got a great head coach. The program is just, there's a lot of momentum for Iowa State. Iowa, though, tends to play Iowa State pretty tough. It's been kind of tough for Iowa State to beat Iowa, and because of that, I think this is a really close game. It's a rivalry. You didn't get to play last year. It's one of those games that probably comes down to the fourth quarter. But I trust Brock Purdy way more than Spencer Petras. I think Iowa State wins this game. I think they're the better team. But because of that rivalry factor, I think it is close. But give me the Cyclones. All right, up next, you've got Kent State and Colorado State. I think both of those are wins for Iowa. Don't really see them having too much of a struggle in either one of those matchups. So they're 3-1 at this point. Then they go on the road to face Maryland. Maryland on October the 2nd. I believe that Maryland's going to be a pretty good team this year. I don't think they're going to challenge Ohio State or anything like that, but they're going to be able to score points offensively. I like where they're at. It's similar to the Indiana game, and where you're talking about a Maryland offense that's going to be really explosive, But at the same time, Iowa's strength is going to be in their secondary, and that'll slow down Maryland enough to where this game is tough to pick, because the difference is this one's at Maryland. The first game's at home for Iowa. I just feel like this is a spot for an upset right before a big game against Penn State. I think we can see an upset. I think Maryland upsets Iowa here. And, I go through each game, but don't get hung up on the individual games. It could easily be a loss to Indiana and a win over Maryland. I said this in other videos. I do my predictions, I get my record, and then sometimes I move games around so that I can get the record that I want for every team. So it's not just as simple as going down the list and picking wins and losses. So keep that in mind, but I think it could play out this way. I could see them beating Indiana, losing to Maryland, and then they play Penn State on October the 9th. A tough team to beat here. Penn State's going to be good this year, in my opinion. And I really feel like Penn State and Indiana are very similar teams. I think that as far as how good they're going to be, I think they're both top 15 teams. And I think it's going to be kind of a similar situation here where it's a toss-up, a game that could go either way. But playing at home, I'm going to give Iowa the advantage. But like I said, you could flip those. Very easily say that they beat Maryland and lose to Penn State. That would definitely be reasonable. But they'll play Purdue after that on October the 16th. Purdue kind of sitting there towards the bottom of the Big Ten, and it doesn't seem like they're going to get out. We keep waiting on it to happen. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think Iowa playing at home will get the win over Purdue. They get a bye week before playing Wisconsin in a huge game. A lot of people think that this is the game that's going to determine the Big Ten West. I just did Wisconsin yesterday, so I may be repeating some things in this video, and I already told you who I picked in that game if you watched the video, but maybe you didn't, so we'll go through it. I think it's a game where I do believe Wisconsin is the better team. I don't think the gap is really wide. I think it's a game that a couple of turnovers could swing it. But with Wisconsin being the better team and playing at home, I think the Badgers get this win. And I think that's a big win for them to kind of clinch the division. Maybe not clinch the division, but make it very tough for anyone else to beat them in that division. So I've got them losing, and then you've got Northwestern here on November the 6th on the road right after Wisconsin. This is going to be a pretty tricky game. I'm just not big on Northwestern. They lost too much from last year's roster. I think, again, because of where it is on the schedule, because it's on the road, it's a close game, but I think Iowa will win, and they get to 6-3. Minnesota next on November 13th, a home game for Iowa. Again, home field advantage going to be big. Minnesota is, I think this is a game that is actually pretty even. Most people think that Iowa is much better than Minnesota, or will be this year. I think Minnesota is right up there with Iowa. I really do. But because the game is at home, again, I think that's the difference. I think Iowa wins this one. But it's a close game. I believe that one will be a four-quarter game. Illinois on November 20th, probably not a four-quarter game. I've got Iowa winning that one and improving to 8-3. Watch out for a real low-scoring game. A lot of running of the football in that one with Brett Bielema taking over at Illinois, and we know what Iowa likes to do as well. All right, so how about the last one? Nebraska on the Friday after Thanksgiving on the road. They've kind of turned this into a rivalry, I guess you could call it. And in this matchup, it's been close. Most of the games have been close. I really believe Nebraska is going to be improved this year. I think they are going to take a step forward. I think playing at home in this matchup, and again, a game that they've proven that they can compete in, I'm actually going to go with, I guess, an upset here and pick Nebraska over Iowa. I think this is a loss for Iowa. It could go, again, maybe they lose to Penn State. Maybe they beat Nebraska. Maybe they lose to Indiana. Maybe they beat Maryland. However it shakes out, I think this team's going to be 8-4. I think, again, they could be a 7-5 type team, but they could easily be a 9-3 team. I don't really see 10-2. That's where I put Wisconsin. But with Indiana, Iowa State, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, Nebraska, even throw Minnesota in there, those 7 games, I don't see this team winning 5 out of 7. I think 9-3 is probably a best case scenario, and then 7-5 probably worst case scenario, somewhere in there. That's why I thought the over/under would probably be around, or would be at 8, not 8.5. So I think it's gonna be tough for them to get to 9-3, but they can do it. But at the same time, you lose one of these other games, it could be a 7-5 type season. I'm going in the middle. I'm going with 8-4 for Iowa. Not quite enough to win the Big Ten West, but still a pretty good season, probably a top 25 finish. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts? What are your predictions on Iowa? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.